Welcome and bienvenidos to this ReLACS podcast. My name is Eric Tomala. I am your host and Assistant Director for the Latin American and Caribbean Studies Center at the University of Maryland. In today's episode, we have Paul Valadez. He is an image maker and a professor in the art department at the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valle. He earned his bachelor's degree in interdisciplinary art from the San Francisco Art Institute and his master in studio arts from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Bienvenido. Welcome, Paul. Mr. Paul Valadez, thank you so much for the opportunity. We are the Latin American Caribbean Studies Center, and this is our welcome into a new director, an open house after a pandemic, 19 months almost. So we're super excited, and we want to invite you virtually to give us a message and to talk to us about the work that you do.
Thank you very much for this opportunity, and welcome back to everyone and the students. I wish I could be there, but I could be there virtually, digitally. My name's, again, Paul Valadez. I was born and raised in California. My father is of Mexican descent, and my mother is from Wilkes County, North Carolina. And when I grew up in a bicultural family. My grandparents did not speak English, and on my father's side, and there was not a whole lot of interaction between the two families. My mother being from, she considered herself a hillbilly or hill people. And my father, like I said, grew up half the time going back and forth from Mexico and the United States. So I struggled with this identity, with my identity, even the concept or the idea of identity. And what I found is that I truly only felt truly American in like, if I left America. If I went to Mexico, I know immediately that I'm not Mexican. If I go to Europe, I'm immediately an American. And if I go to Mexico, I'm immediately an American. When I'm back in America, I tend to be Latino, Chicano, Hispanic, Latinx, California, Tejano, Mexican American, or anything with the hyphen. And I've always felt that very odd, because I never felt, as a child, I never felt at home in either one of the families. In my mother's side, I was the dark children, and on my father's side, we were the white children. And when I went to graduate school, I really wanted to deal with identity, and I was trying and I was struggling with how do I portray identity. And what it really came down to me was this idea of food. It wasn't religion, it wasn't language, because I knew that I couldn't learn Spanish. My father didn't want us to speak Spanish in the house, but he wanted us only to speak English. And what it dawned on me is that somebody, not me, commented that you are what you bring extra to Thanksgiving. And the way I thought of it was like, you would have a Thanksgiving dinner, and with the basic one, with the turkey and the cranberry and the stuffing and the mashed potatoes. But if you brought something else, if you brought something, an addition to that, that was your identity. If you had Thanksgiving and something, and you looked around and you said, where's the tamales? Well, who's bringing the tamales? That was that extra thing. That was that idea. That's the thing that explained your identity more than anything else to me. So I started working with imagery of food, because it is one of these things that crosses cultures. It also defines cultures. It's not so much a language. And one of the first things that people do when they come to someplace else is they try to bring the foods that they had from their other home. I remember when I was in graduate school in North Carolina, that we were real excited when a Hispanic store opened up, and we can go in and we could buy tortillas, and it was just like fantastic, because we had gone to a supermarket and we're looking for tortillas. And the guy says, you mean those wraps? And I said, yeah, do you have any of those wraps? Oh no, we don't have any of them. Okay, fine, that's great. So it was always kind of odd. So you'll see a lot of my work deals with the imagery of food, and I use it as a signifier for my own identity and the thing that makes me feel comfortable. The other thing about my work is that it tends to deal with not only the imagery of food, but this idea of a homemade type of signage. Today, all the signage is computer generated, but when I was a young person, all the places we would go would have handmade signs, and I'd always liked that, the mom and pop, not the corporate, but the people that said, we got to say found this X, Y, or Z on sale, and we're going to have that as a special. So they would mark that and they would put that up, and I would look for those handmade signs. And now over time, I'm seeing less and less of these handmade signs, and it reminds me of being at home, and it reminds me of being someplace where I feel more comfortable at. So I want to have the images that I make to be signifying comfort, signifying identity, signifying something that would make you feel more at ease, because that's the kind of thing I like to be surrounded by. Some of the images that I make in terms of faces are faces that remind me of my childhood. I keep going back to my childhood, and I keep thinking of these faces of these people that were dressing in 1960s and 1970s fashion, and these large people that smelled the cigarettes and aftershave. And I kind of like that. I feel comfortable with that. I was making images of Mexican movie stars and television stars, but I wouldn't write down who they were. And people tended to say, who's this or who's that? And I would have forgotten or didn't even write it down to begin with. So I thought, well, why can't I have this thing that resonates, makes people think of a certain time and place, but not having to be a specific person? So I went to try to find images of people that weren't famous, that were unfamous, but had a face that somehow reminded me of my childhood. So that's where I'm coming from. The thing that I use in my work is actual spices. Sometimes you'll see a granulation in the paint, and that's actually chili spice or menudo spice that I would actually add to the paint to add texture. Now, when they were first made, they would give off that odor, but very quickly the odor went away, and it's not there, but you can still see the granulation that the things are actually made out of it. So I thought of making the food out of images of food out of the food, or making the images out of the stuff that I actually would consume. So this was another layer to the work that I'd make. So
Wonderful.
okay.
Well, Mr. Valadez, I really want to thank you for providing this this context and giving us a little bit of that map to our small but beautiful exhibition that we have for the open house.
This podcast was brought to you by the Latin American and Caribbean Studies Center at the University of Maryland. Please follow us in YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and listen to the next podcast. Thank you y nos vemos.